Welcome to Tyrompers No Limit Podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, thanks so much for tuning in to Tyrompers No Limit Podcast. This is episode 99, and this is going to be my all-time favorite one. We have a legend in the house today. I was telling my wife the other day, if I could interview 10 people in the world, this guy would make the top 10 list. He is an all-time GOAT of poker, a 3-time World Series of Poker champion, the CEO of Run It Once, happily married, just successful in all areas of life, a guy that I really admire and look up to, Mr. Phil Galfond in the house. Welcome, sir.
Man, thank you. And no pressure. Yeah, you just told me beforehand that I was on that top 10 list. So I'm taking that in. I'm honored.
Yeah, well, it's so great to meet you in person, man. You're a guy I've looked up to. I've been a member of your community for a long time and learned a lot indirectly from you and super grateful. But anybody out there who might not know a little bit about you, man, I got a lot of people that follow me. They're just dads or whatnot. So maybe give a quick intro yourself, man.
All right. Yeah, I'm coming up on 40 and I've been playing poker. I started playing poker professionally 20 years ago, a little over that, or semi-professionally, then dropped out of school a couple of years later. And that's, been my life for a long time. I started teaching poker about 15 years ago, making some training videos, and then launching my own training site, Run It Once. That's been going strong for 12 years. And have had some other entrepreneurial projects since then. Some more successful than others. Most after Run It Once training, unsuccessful. But it's been an adventure.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Yeah. Well, I appreciate all you bring. I will get into the poker stuff eventually, but I'm very curious to hear about some of the early years, man, because that's pretty undocumented, at least as far as I've seen, and I've followed your journey. But you attended, was it University of Madison, Wisconsin?
Yes.
So what did you go there to do? Did you discover poker there? Was it a normal first couple of years, or what was that like?
Yeah, I mean, so I was a poor student in school, like high school. I didn't do my homework. I would do well on tests and I would get by. But I actually didn't really want to go to college. I didn't care that much, but my parents very much wanted me to. And so to the point, my mom basically filled out applications for me. And she made me I wrote an essay, but and she sent a bunch of them off, and UW-Madison was one of the ones that I applied to and got into. And it was just like, during my junior year of high school, and everybody's like, hey, where are you thinking about going? I would list the colleges that I was thinking about. And I just had a couple of experiences where somebody said, yeah, my cousin goes to Madison and just absolutely loves it. Like people raved about it more than the others. And so that's really why I chose it. And I didn't go with a plan in terms of what to study. I ended up majoring in philosophy, at least until I dropped out, because I liked the classes the best.
Okay.
But I didn't have a plan. That was it. And I played cards with friends growing up, like nothing that I've seen spread in a casino, but technically poker games. And like that's what we would do most weeks, like couple days a week. Me and my buddies would play. And
were any of these games like between the sheets, baseball, spit? We grew up playing a lot of that, same like for quarters and big bets $1 or something like that. Okay, so very similar.
And then it was during the end of my freshman year of college when a friend of mine from back home won a tournament online on Party Poker for $30,000. And it was the talk of our group of friends from back home, of course. And he reached out to me specifically and said, hey, Phil, I've been actually buying poker books and studying this, and I think you'd be really good at it. And that was enough for me. I liked to gamble, and that was all I needed.
Man, so your buddy wins 30,000, which is all the money, and that's 30 million back when you're in college, right? So that's pretty amazing. Do you ever think what you might be doing now if that buddy had never won that tournament? Let's just say he loses a flip early on or whatnot. Do you think if you didn't discover poker, have you ever thought of that?
I think there was a good chance I would have discovered it anyway, but if I didn't discover poker, I would have probably, I don't know if I would have finished college. Probably would have finished with a philosophy degree and either have been a teacher or I might have found my way into entrepreneurship. I think that's where I feel like I'm entrepreneurial minded, but I don't know if I would have kind of thought outside the box enough to go for it.
Well, I think I can say, and everybody, a lot of people are glad that you found poker. You've helped a lot of people along the journey, and it's been fun to watch. Can you talk a little about those early years, man? Like it seemed like you came onto the scene, people started to know you, and then you just shot right up. But I'm sure there maybe were a time or two where you're like, oh man, this game's hard. I'm having doubt. Were there any rough experiences, big losing days that stand out where you thought like maybe I'm not making the right choice? And then a follow-up to that is, how did your parents take you being like,
Yeah.
hey, I quit. I'm going to do this gambling thing.
So there are definitely rough days that stand out, but I don't know. I've remained a weird mix of like, I feel like I walk the line of confidence very well. I don't get overconfident or underconfident very often. And there were some rough days because I was not very disciplined with my bankroll early on. So there were 2 days that stand out to me. Basically 2 times I lost half my bankroll in a day. And the first, I was 21, and this was World Series of Poker. It was my first World Series of Poker. I was staying in a house with a few guys, and I was a 5-10 no limit online player at that point. And I had around, well, before the summer, a little over 100,000. At this point in the summer, a little under 100,000, like 90,000 in my bankroll. And I took a shot at 5,100 online game against. I mean, the guy was a good person to play.
Yeah,
and it just didn't go my way. So I lost 45, 50K. And there's one hand, probably my most memorable hand was from that session and it was the last hand I played, where I 3-bet with king queen offsuit. So he opens the 300, I make it 1,100. Actually 1-1-1-1 was what I was doing at the time. And the flop was basically like 6-4 deuce, something to that effect. Rainbow, I bet half pot, he called, and the turn paired the 4. It was roughly that. I checked and he potted for 4-4-4-4. And I had just over double that, or just under double that. And I didn't believe him. And I took all my time bank and I decided to shove king queen high. And he starts going into the tank, and I'm like, okay, that's kind of good. And as the timer ticks down, gets to the last second, he clicks call, and my heart sinks. And he turns up his hand, it's king jack. So I have the best hand. And as I'm processing that, jack.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
So this was a good game to be in, man.
Yes, yeah, it was. So that it was such a,
wow.
And so that was the 5th buy-in, and I called it quits. And I don't know, I think it was good that I was in that environment, surrounded by other players who, were on a similar journey to me, my age, and playing, and we were all at different kind of levels, but within the same ballpark. And 45,000 was plenty of money to play with when you're 21, and I was fine. I was really motivated back then to play bigger and bigger and to challenge myself, and so taking those shots was actually my motivation to grind more at the lower stakes. And so it wasn't that hard for me to step back down and grind. I had another time further along in my career when I lost 400,000 of 800,000 in a night. And that was a rough one too. That was at 300, 600 across a few tables. But no, I never really questioned it. There are times when you're on and I can't point to them specifically, but when I've been on a downswing for an extended period of time, not necessarily like one very harsh day, but it's just been a while since I've, strung together some wins that I start to wonder, are the games getting too tough? Do I not have it anymore? Or, are the games too tough for my continued, for me to continue winning? And I think it just, I don't know when I got to the point of enough confidence that maybe when I started teaching, which made me more confident because people were learning so much. And I could tell that I had a way to think about the game that was unique.
Yeah.
I think that gave me the confidence that even when things were not going well, I knew I could figure it out.
That makes a lot of sense, man. Yeah, let's talk about those poker houses, because that's like how it was. We didn't have solvers. I was in that era too. We're roughly the same age, where I'd get houses with 10 other guys. We a lot of debauchery and crazy stuff going on, but mostly we're grinding and we're all talking poker 24/7. That's just how we got better. Who were those early guys in your crew, man? And do some of them still play?
Yeah, so there were a lot of them have done pretty well. So the first house I stayed in, the ones that you may have heard of, would be Andrew Roble.
Kind of an in-boss too.
Yeah. Max Greenwood, who doesn't play anymore, but his brothers, Sam and Luke, do.
Very good as well.
Yeah. And Max was Peter Jetton.
Yeah.
And then a couple of guys that one of them is Dan Quinn, who's my co-founder at Run It Once. So you wouldn't know him from poker. He quit poker to start Run It Once with me. And then in the next year, our house expanded. We had Tom Dwan, David Benefield, and a handful of, so a lot of people that, have stuck around and have made an impact in poker, made a name for themselves.
It's such a cheat code to surround yourself with smart people that are sharing ideas. And I mean, that's the power of Run It Once too, right?
Yeah.
Is like, I remember watching all of your even like PLO videos, and I didn't play PLO at the time, because just to hear your thought process and how you approach the game it's so valuable in poker, man. So that's awesome.
Thank you. I mean, the biggest thing that I tell poker players and like, I just believe this for whatever you're doing, is exactly what you said. Surround yourself with people who are interested in learning it with you. And it's just like all of my growth in poker, I've grown so much faster in the periods where I've been working with people than when I've been on my own. I have had periods of each. And it's just like a noticeable difference. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense. So how were your folks? Were they very supportive right away, or was there a little pushback? You know, how'd that conversation go?
When I started playing, like it first became my kind of job on the side of college. I was making $15 an hour. And so I didn't get a job while I was going to school, and this was my job, and they didn't have too many feelings about it that I was aware of. But it was when I dropped out halfway through my junior year so my dad told me, I wish you'd stay in school, but I would have done what you're doing. Because I showed him my poker tracker. I was like, look, this is how much I'm making per hour. This is the sample. My dad's a statistician. So I'm like,
gets it.
Yeah. And so, he said that, and my mom said, I don't understand it, but I know you have a good head on your shoulders, and I'm sure you're, probably making reasonable decisions. I found out years later that she was kind of losing her mind, but she didn't let me know, which I really appreciate.
Man, that's pretty awesome. Yeah, my freshman year of college, I had a 3.8 GPA, and then I discovered poker, and I got a 1.4 my next year and dropped out. So it's a pretty standard story from back then. And back then, I don't think people understand that or have been in poker the last, say, decade plus. But 20 years ago, if you just were a little bit smart and a little bit hardworking, the games were just absolutely I remember showing my parents too, all the Excel spreadsheets and the hourly. And I'm like, look, I'm trying to be a teacher to make $40K a year, and I made $42,000 last month. Like I can't turn away from this, So
it was, there were fewer tools to learn, but the games were so good that if you put in some effort and I think you said, a little smart and a little hardworking, either or really, like it was pretty easy at the beginning there. But I find it interesting that, a lot of people who 15, 20 years ago rose to the top, a lot of them continue to be top players, even in the post-solver era of poker.
Yeah, and that's where I'd like to go next, man, because, you crushed for a long time, and then the game sort of changed, and you took a few years off to start companies and do a lot of these other entrepreneurial things, right?
Yeah.
And then you come back and you basically issue a challenge, and this is just crazy to me, but you're like, I'll play anybody in the world for high stakes PLO, right? Heads up. And I remember, at the time I was managing a bank and playing poker part-time. And so I'm in these circles of a lot of friends that still talk poker. You were like the talk of every circle. Or when I went to play live poker, that was the talk. Can Phil beat Benavides? Can he, and then it started out pretty poorly, right? Like almost as poorly as it could.
Yes.
You were down a lot.
Yeah.
And then can you kind of talk through that? What's your thought process coming back? And for anybody who doesn't know, it was called the Galfond Challenge, right? And you basically said, I'll play anybody in the world. This is probably the best player in the world at the time who comes
He's
and
one
plays
up. So
you.
I do want to, disclaimer is, I said, I'm going to play a bunch of top players. Reach out to me if you're interested.
Okay.
I did get, I got, I don't know, maybe 9 people interested, and I picked 5 of them. So
Okay.
there was, Linus reached out and said, do you want to play half and half? I said, no. So I gave myself, I could have denied somebody in the structure.
Gotcha.
But I did happen to pick a lot of the top players. And I don't know, for me, for a long time, I thought I was driven, I'm driven and competitive, and I thought it was money, but I don't think it is. I think that I want to see what I'm capable of. That's what really drives me. And so there was a time in poker, when solvers came out, when I took some time away, I was not sure if I'd be able to do it because, like I said, I was never a great student. I was never a studier, don't have particularly good memory. And I thought that, solver poker was, study, memorize, and then execute. And I was like, if the best players are going to be the best studiers, it's not going to be me. And so I was sad about that because I loved being able to compete at a high level. It's fun and exciting, and I'm just trying to see what I can do. So the Galfond Challenge was, it was born out of actually me realizing how much I missed poker. So I was at a mastermind event that Elliot Rowe hosted. He's a mindset coach in poker, and very well known within poker circles. And I was talking about some struggles that I've been having with my business, and happened to talk a little bit about poker in there. And the kind of feedback from everybody in the group was, when you're talking about your business, it sounds stressful. You sound tired. You sound exhausted. When you talk about poker, you light up. And so my takeaway there was I need to find a way to play again. And it was over a year after then that I came up with the Galfond Challenge. So I didn't act on it right away. But that takeaway is largely what led to it was, here's a way that I can get back, really challenge myself in a fun way, and also help the business that I was growing because it got publicity for the business.
Okay. So twofold in that. Yeah. Most people will just start back at like 25, 50 or 50. You're like, nah, let's go to the highest stakes.
Yeah.
Right?
A lot of people, I think because I'm measured in the way I speak and act, because I'm come across as, I don't know, like thoughtful and logical, people assume that I am very careful. And I'm actually not. Every game that I've tried to learn, I learned at the highest stakes. So like I tried to learn 8 game, stepping into the biggest games and lost $1.5 million. I stepped into the highest deuce 7 triple draw games when I wanted to learn triple draw, and lost $1 million straight. I ended up even in that game, fortunately, because I did learn. But mixed games, 8 game, I'm still down. But I don't know. It's whatever it is that made it hard for me to study, makes it hard for me to take it seriously and learn more slowly. Like I have to throw myself into the fire.
So has it always been like that since you were a kid? Because I've always been sort of more conservative in my bankroll approach and all those things. But
I wouldn't
seems like the best players can't be.
Yeah, I was not. No, I wouldn't consider myself a risk taker at all. But kind of a dreamer.
Okay.
So like that's where I had the capacity, I think. But I was a pretty careful person, I would say, as a kid.
Okay. Because I've seen clips and stuff of you too. And then even with that, like, well, I'm going to learn by playing this game where I can lose $1 million in a day, right? But I guess from your coaching and from everything I've seen, and even just your demeanor.
Yeah, no, I don't seem like
you seem
gambler.
like the guy who would just be so like everything is going to be super well thought out, you know?
No, it's, I mean, it's thought out to a point. But yeah, I learn best kind of
just going.
Getting in there.
Yeah. Action always wins, man. So let's go to this Galfond Challenge, the first match. Yeah. You're down over $1 million and you're thinking about quitting. And this was highlighted so well on I'll link everything Phil does below, guys. But if you haven't checked out his 4 series YouTube series, please check it out. It's literally the greatest TV I've seen. I don't really watch TV, but greatest TV, man. So during that, you're having all this inner turmoil. Maybe the game's passed me by, right? Maybe that's it. Can you talk us through that? And then your decision, I'll never forget that tweet, I'm going to play. And then the comeback story, man. Can you sort of talk us through that?
It was, it was really disappointing for obvious. It's stressful to be losing a lot. And here, I've a couple of times thrown around $1 million during this conversation. This was $1 million, but it was actually lower stakes than some of the other times I've been talking about. So it was $1 million of 45 buy-ins. It was like, it's a lot of losing. Yeah. There's a lot of losing for a month straight. Yeah. So it was very disheartening. And this was I scheduled 5 Galfond challenges. This was the first one. This was my debut. Does Phil still have it? Let's see. And then I just get pummeled. With everybody watching. So it was a little embarrassing and disheartening. And what I was struggling with is I didn't want to give up. I didn't think that I could make a comeback, but I thought I could. I thought I could get to a point where, like, from that point, I could win a little bit. And that would be proving to myself, really, that I could compete with him today, with top players today. But financially, like there's a side bet involved, and that was kind of out of reach at this point. So it was just like, do I think should I really just keep playing this guy who's really like holding over me? Or should I just move on to some other challengers? Because I'm committed to play other people too. And
it can get quite expensive, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I really wanted to continue. I definitely knew I wanted to continue, but it didn't feel smart. And so I was wrestling with that a lot. And there was it was fortunate timing for me in that Vinny was taking some vacation coming up. And so over the course of like 2 weeks, I think we were normally playing 3 or 4 sessions a week. But over this like 2-week period, there were just 2 scheduled. And we had a lot of terms in place. And one of the terms was you could miss time, you could pay a penalty to miss hours or days.
Yeah.
And so I paid, I think it was something like $4,000 to miss a day. So I paid for 2 or 3 days to miss so that I had like 2 or 3 weeks off. And just to think about it, and during that time, the most important thing that I did was I played just heads up Zoom PLO 5100 against a lot of other good players. And I happened to win there. I happened to run really hot there. And so that showed me that like, no, I do like, obviously there's variance on either side, but it gave me some confidence. No, I do know what I'm doing here. I do really like have a chance. And this has been a really bad run. Is he outplaying me? Maybe, but I can hang. I think
the gap can't be that big, right? That drastic. Do you, can I ask you a question? Because I always wonder this with competitive people who you're clearly competitive. Do you ever think about, because I remember some of those comments, I'm certain you do too, that Phil's washed up. How is this guy even a coach? How, all these things were coming out at this point. Did you hold on to any of that? Did that sort of hurt? Because you've always been such a great ambassador for poker and all that. Did any of that sort of touch on the ego, or do you even use that beyond that? Because, sometimes you hear Michael Jordan lost a horse game 28 years ago and he still like thinks about it. Is there any of that that's involved?
There is some of that. Usually at almost any point in my career, I would tell you that if someone says I suck at poker, I don't care. It's just like, I know that I don't, and I don't care. But this was one point where I wasn't sure. So I did care. So those comments were, expected, first of all, but they were, I took a little hit to my ego. I didn't, but it did make me want to prove them wrong as well. So I think, it can hurt, but it's only fuel. Never would a comment like that make me play worse or care less. It's only positive for my performance, I would say.
I think that's such a good mind. That's it. Anyway, you can use that as fuel for anything, really. Right? I've been mailed 4 hate letters by old high school classmates telling me I'm this or that, and I'm like, thanks. Days I don't feel like getting out of bed, there it is. So that makes a lot of sense, man. And you said it's to be expected. I'm just going to throw this on there. I don't know why people go online and hate on people. I've never understood it, especially nice people, but there are people.
We've had
just
conversations.
Like that.
We've talked, that's one of the things we connected over. I don't get it. I really don't understand. I don't understand it. And it's hard for me. I like to think of myself as thoughtful and empathetic, but it's really hard for me to empathize because I just can't get into the mindset. It's similar to, sometimes I'll be playing live and I'll see somebody lose a hand and just like punch the table. They get really mad. And I've never had the urge to punch the table. So it's hard for me to empathize with, like, I don't know what that feels like.
That makes sense, man. Yeah, I think it's like hurt people.
Yeah.
And so I do feel a lot of empathy, but it is a weird thing, man, that people to go online and do that. But, sidebar. Anyway, so back to the Galfond challenge, you do start turning it around. And then I had a question in there, you 45 buy-ins down and it kind of was over. Everybody said there's no way you can do this. And then it was like day after day, like, dude, he won 110,000. Dude, he won 94,000. Dude, and then like our group chat started picking up, right? Everybody started watching it and commenting, and then I think he could do this, right? And so talk me through that. And was there a strategy shift where maybe you were a lot solver based there and you just went back to, hey, I'm Phil Galfond. I'm going to go with what's right for me, or what was that switch?
I did try to go back more towards pre-solver because I had just learned so much about solver poker, we'll call it. And I had a game plan in my mind. It wasn't exactly what the solver said, but I had like a simplified version of game plan, and I was just trying to execute that. And I think really what it was, and I think this might have happened anyway, but because it was so unnatural, like at that point, it's the conscious incompetence where like conscious competence. So like I could do it, but I had to think really hard about playing that game plan. And so I didn't have room to think about hand reading. I didn't have room to like pick up on subtle like board texture nuances or anything that he did during the hand that would tip me off to something. And so I was just trying to execute the strategy and shutting off really my greatest strength as a poker player, which is hand reading and situational adjustments to opponents. And so there was a friend of mine said during the break, like, old Phil probably would have an edge here. So why don't you just, be old Phil? Like, and so I like just something clicked. And I think it was just enough repetitions. It just took a month of repetitions before I kind of, some of the stuff became a little more automatic and I had the mental bandwidth to access the more interesting stuff in poker, in my opinion, which is just like leveling and hand reading and things like that. And so there was that shift. Yes.
Yeah, it seemed like it watching him. And did you ever meet Vinaviti in person?
Never met him. I had a lot of conversations with him, but no.
I remember the coolest thing. You win the match. Who was the announcer who made the big call? Oh my! He's like yelling the F word. He's gonna do
that was
it.
Tuckman.
That was like the amazing. I mean, it gives me chills to me.
Yeah.
We put, everybody was watching that in the whole poker community, and even outside poker, there was people that started tuning into that. It was such a big deal. And then you went on to win the next 4, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So you go undefeated in this, and you sort of solidify. Hey guys, like I can take off years and still come back and do this, right?
Yeah, it was really meaningful to me because, like I said, I thought it might be over. I thought my time being able to compete at the top would be over. And no, I mean, I haven't proved I'm the best. I haven't proved that, and it's just one game type. But it means something to me just to know that I can do it.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. That's cool. That's where you get a lot of the fuel from. One thing I wanted to hit on too, man, and this was so cool watching in the YouTube documentary is Farah, your wife. So she is like probably more intense than you are on, rooting for you and just seems to always have your back. And just, no matter during the hateful comments, I remember her coming on Twitter and like firing back at people. And it was cool to see. I'd love to know, how'd you guys meet? This is you. I think you're coming up on 10 years of marriage. Is that right?
Yeah. 10 years of marriage.
Congratulations on that,
Thank
man.
you. Thank you.
So what's the early day? Any cool pickup stories? It was rumored you had a slide in your apartment in New York. Was that still a thing when you met her?
No. So the slide, I'd recently sold that apartment, unfortunately. So no slide left to rely on. No, it was actually, we met on Twitter.
No way. Wow.
Yeah, we met on Twitter. She played poker recreationally.
Okay.
And as she's a better storyteller than I am, but as she tells it, she was working on a show at the time and they made her get a Twitter account. She didn't want it. And they were tweeting for her. And eventually, like one day she got curious and she's like, what are they saying is me? And she was like, okay, give me the keys. And so she followed a few poker players that she had seen on TV and I was one of them. Wow. And she said she would never reply to people she didn't know on Twitter. But there was some World Series main event. I was playing the main event. I busted out on day 3 or something. And I just talked about how great an experience it was and how I really enjoyed like the people I played with. And she was struck by that because everybody's kind of complaining about their bad beats during the main event. And she just made a clever comment. And I replied, nice. And then it was really slow developing, but over the course of months, we would comment, like she would reply to something and I'd reply back and then I followed her and then there'd be some more replying. And eventually the way we started DMing was we were going back and forth in just replies and I was on a flight and I took off and I lost internet and she thought she had said something because I stopped replying. And so she DM'd me and was like, hey, I don't know, something like that. So that was the start of it. And when it was, so I'm like a lot of online poker players, introverted, not great at dating, and like not the best with, I don't know, so like social cues. So I was pretty sure we were flirting, but I really wasn't positive. But it went on for so long that I was like, okay, I really think this is something. And I lived in Vancouver. She lived in LA.
Yeah.
And I was just like,
for people who didn't know, she was a famous actress at the time. She was on soap operas and really well known in her own regard, right? Just crushing everything that she was doing. So,
yeah. And so I had some friends in LA, and I just told her, hey, I'm going to visit some of my best friends in LA. Love to meet up if you're, available. And I mean, it was true in that I did go see my friends, but the trip was just to meet her.
Phil, this is perfect. So this is the perfect game tree for any guys out here that are dating, because you just got to make a play without she can't say no. I did this with my wife, Annie. Yeah. We're from the same hometown, and I found out we were kind of flirting back and forth. Yeah. She was going home. I said, oh, what a coincidence. I'm going back home that same weekend to visit my grandma. I love my grandma. Maybe we can meet up, right? And so it's a really good, you follow that game tree way to do that. So that's awesome, man. So you get out to LA, you guys meet, you do coffee. What's it go from there, man?
And nice. We ended up spending a lot of that week together that I was there. And we were long distance for the first while, but saw each other a lot. And we're actually better at writing to each other than talking as communicators. And so it was actually really good for us, I think, that we were long distance in the first couple of years. We really got to know each other, I think actually better than we would have in person. And
I'm a big proponent of that too. My wife and I were in different cities for the first several, and we text 5,000 times a day, but you really get to know somebody more than that initial. It's usually just with physical attraction. And so it's really cool. You get to know a lot about them. I think that's cool.
Yeah. And so we would have, basically we had a policy of just a minimum of a good morning and a good night email. That's what we do. And, more than that's fine, but that was what we promised each other. And
So who was more famous when you guys met? Because she was on a national TV show. I always wondered this. And then
we wondered too. We didn't really know. I think that I think it was her. I think I'm a little more now. But I think it was.
I mean, you're the goat of a niche community, but I think that's more of a that's probably fair,
my kind of fame is weird. Where if I walk into a poker room, I'm I'm Michael Jordan. But if I go to the movies, I'm almost everybody doesn't know who I am. So,
which is a kind of a cool thing.
It is.
Joey Ingham's one of my best friends here, and it's the same. If we're walking the strip and then we walk into the Wynn poker room, that guy, I can't. I might as well go take a walk for 2 hours, right? But if we just go into a restaurant, nobody knows.
It is cool. So,
it's kind of a cool thing. Well, that journey's awesome, man. Coming up on 10 years, and you guys just seem like such a great couple. And now you've got a heir to the Run It Once empire, right? Yes. You got Spencer, and that was cool to see him highlighted on your YouTube and stuff like that. Talk to me a little bit about fatherhood, parenting, how that's been like, man.
Man, it's I always wanted to be a dad. Even when I was a teenager, and I was the oldest of a lot of cousins. And so I was almost like an uncle to a bunch of cousins, spent a lot of time, and I was a camp counselor. So I had a lot of experience with kids, and I thought I thought that I was going to be a natural and it was going to be easy. And interestingly, I don't know, Farah, who did not have that background, she was, I think she won't mind me saying, she was the kind of person that, you show a picture of your kid and she's like, oh, nice. She doesn't really want to see it
for me.
Yeah. Doesn't really want to see it. But now, I mean, she's just completely, all mom. And she's such a great mom. And she always, I think, she always knows what he needs and wants in a way that I sometimes don't. But it is, I do get to be the fun dad, which is a fun job. For sure. But I found, and this is one of the things that I've really been working on and trying to work on the next year is having energy at the end of my workday. Because I've definitely felt I don't know, disappointed in myself a little bit that I'm happy when he wants to watch something on TV because I'm okay, I can just relax a little bit. And so I am I'm not as, I guess when I had a lot of experience with kids, I was 20, and so it is different. But no, I mean, I love it. I love seeing him develop. But I guess that was just a note on I think I could do better.
Yeah, I think that's part of all dads, man. Yeah. So I run a dad's community, and we're all we're our hardest critics. And I guarantee if anyone's watching you from the outside, they're oh, Phil's killing it. He's like present with his kid and he's that, but we'll think back to that one night where we like, oh dude, I wish he'd just zone out. And it's funny, man. I had showered for this podcast and I was like all ready to come down here. And then my sons were like, hey daddy, can we go do a scooter ride? And I'm like, I'm going to get all sweaty, but I'm like, I try and make it a point to just not say no. Cause I've talked to a lot of older guys who tell me like, it goes so fast and there's going to be one day where they just don't ask, And so, yeah, let's go buddies, let's take off. And it caused me to be a minute or two late down here, but it's like, I don't know. I just think taking those opportunities are awesome, but it's really cool to see you guys build that and like just beam with pride when you talk about your son. And that was a really cool aspect of that, man. So
awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, it's cool side of you to see.
I like
man.
that. I mean, I think I think I could benefit from like a day of not saying no and just seeing it like to anything and seeing how it goes. Cause
well, your kid's smart. He might really,
he might, yeah, no, he
might end up at Disney World or something, but
yeah.
But yeah, I just like those little things, man. Like I doubt we'll be looking back when we're 80 and like, oh, I wish I would have like wrote the extra newsletter.
Yep.
It's like those sort of things, right?
For sure.
That's how I tend to think about it. But
yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Anyway, man, I wanted to get back to sort of the run it once business. This was an amazing time in poker where training sites came out, right? Yeah. And all these things were popping up, and it's like the highest ROI ever to like, dude, for a $50 a month site or $100 a month site, you can learn things if you're playing 5-10, 2-4, even if you're playing like 1-3 to local casino that can save you a couple bets and make you money, right? So you came in, everybody was kind of doing things the same way.
Yeah.
And then your company came in, and when did you have this idea? And you guys have been the most successful training site now for over a decade. Talk me through that, man, and how that was an adjustment from going to just playing poker all day or you're kind of on your schedule to, hey, now I'm like running meetings, hiring staff, a lot of these extra things, right?
Well, so at the beginning, it didn't change that much because like I said, Dan Quinn, who I met way back in the beginning, I mean, before I got to Vegas, we met on 2+2 forums. I started with him and he ran the day-to-day. So he's my co-founder.
Okay.
He ran the day-to-day. My job was make videos, vet every coach who we hire. And, we make big decisions together. But I got to still be a full-time pro, which I loved.
Okay.
And we did things differently. And honestly, this is more Dan's vision than mine. He was just kind of felt like training sites were unprofessional, that, was generally not attractive sites. Some weeks they put out 2 videos, some weeks they put out 4 videos. Like, you don't really know what's going to happen. And he was just like, no, let's be polished. And so we put out 2 videos a day, every day for 12 years now. And that was really his vision more than mine. I like the idea. I said, yeah, let's do it. But, and we charge more because of that, in order to do that rather. It was fun. And I think it's fun to build something and then see it work, see people, first of all, see it be successful, and earn, but also to see people benefit from it. And people love it. And so that was really cool. And I think, I know gave me and probably Dan as well, just a kind of a false sense of confidence in myself as a businessman. Cause it was kind of easy. We made some decisions that I think were good, but a training site with me representing it for free and making video, like it was not going to fail. And so we tried some other things. I think one of our strengths we felt like was design and product design. And so we thought we'd take that into some other areas and you learned a lot of lessons along the way. I'll put it that way.
With specifically, I'm sure you're talking about the Run It Once, man, poker, which was to take on that, a site is probably just a whole different kind of beast, man. Some of those episodes were just kind of gut wrenching to watch you going through that. And then it's like, he's losing how much a month? And it doesn't matter how much you have. Yeah. If you're burning through that, and that was a point where I was watching, I think your wife said off camera, even like, we were in for that much.
Yeah, she didn't know.
Yeah, and it's I'm sure those days were pretty stressful, but getting through that sale, man, and now kind of looking back, are you grateful? Glad you did it? Wish you had never touched it? Where are you at with that now?
I'm grateful for it. I'm like, I hesitate to say like glad I did it because it was hard for me. It was hard for a lot of other people too. So I don't want to be glad that they went through it too, but I'm glad that I went through the challenge, because I grew a lot from it. And it really, I don't know, it took me down the path that I'm on now, which is So kind of after that sale, I started getting into content a little bit more and getting into personal development, and then getting into coaching, which I'd done strategy training videos forever. Did not ever, even in strategy, did not work with people one-on-one like more than a couple times. But then kind of inspired by being a part of different like group coaching experiences, I started doing it myself, and it was kind of for poker players, but not talking about strategy, talking about everything else involved. Yeah. And I've found that really rewarding and fun, and that's what I'm kind of spending my energy. That's what I'm spending my energy on now, and a lot of my time. And it's fun to, like, one of the things I've struggled with. This is kind of a tangent, but I think probably playing poker is the most fun work thing that I do. However,
still to this day,
like I just love playing, but I also feel like there's nowhere left to grow there. And I can learn, I can get better at No Limit Hold'em again, and and so I'm interested in doing more business and doing more coaching and just like learning more about other things. But it's tough because I just love playing even more. There are parts that I like, but playing is something else.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this, Phil. I just thought of this now, and it's like with poker, your whole job essentially, if you're playing a guy heads up, right, is to exploit him, learn weaknesses, just pounce on those weaknesses and punish them for mistakes, right? Now you flip that into something, that's what you've been doing for a long time. And then you get to flip that now to maybe finding a guy's weakness, but helping him build that and teaching him, and then seeing the fruit of that and seeing him grow and learn. Is that where you think you find a lot of the fulfillment, or?
Yeah, I mean, that's I hadn't thought of that. Like I figured out where you were going while you were saying it, but I hadn't thought of that. That's thank you for that. That's awesome. Yeah, so it is kind of some of the same preliminary skills of figuring out what somebody's missing. Yeah. And then it's obviously very rewarding.
I'm so competitive too. I used to hate the guys I played online. I never met them, but I was a reg in a lot of the mid stakes and then lower stakes games, and I'd hate them, and then it didn't feel good inside to like want them to crush them and hope that you like bankrupt them, the regs, not the fun players, but and now I think that I've gone on this other side of like self-help and development and working with dads and marriages and things like that. It's so much more fulfilling, even though it could be less money sometimes. I don't know, the amount of fulfillment and life happiness just feels amazing, man. So it's cool to see you taking that journey. You've always been a natural teacher, I would say. And you mentioned Elliot Rowe, and I've read pretty much everything he's done. That guy's a genius, right? Yes. Talk me through some of that self-development. You're coaching now. I mean, you put out, dude, your newsletter is amazing. The free content there, all the stuff you put out is just really like world-class and top of the line. It seems like your whole mission now is to kind of help people and grow. So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, thank you. I've always loved teaching. Yeah, like you said, I don't know. I think what I've been good at is explaining something that I know. So I like to go out and learn things and then make them easier to understand. And I think that's the skill, and the making them easier to understand is the skill that I have. And I don't know, the content thing kind of happened. It was funny. The content thing happened because it just felt like it was something I should do. And there was not a lot of passion behind it, but it was just like, I've got a following already. I don't nurture it. I don't try. Like, what if I actually put some time and energy into this? Wouldn't that be good for me? Wouldn't it be good for the businesses I'm associated with? And so that was the start of it. And I've really kind of honed in on the types of content I like to make more, which are YouTube videos and the newsletter. The short form stuff, I don't like as much. I still like, I'm getting back into doing it because I should, but I don't enjoy it as much. But yeah, I don't know. I love to teach, and I think it is. If I'm being honest, I think while I'm, let's say, writing a newsletter, I'm not thinking actively about how much this is going to help someone. Yet I'm just thinking of explaining something clearly and putting it out. Yet obviously the most rewarding parts are when I hear from somebody, hey, that like I needed to read that right now. Or, hey, I started watching your videos 10 years ago and it changed my life. so it's funny how for some reason that's not the impetus for it, but it's the most rewarding part. And getting into, I don't know, it's funny because personal development, I've had this conversation a couple times in the last month with people about like personal development, especially if you use the word like life coach, kind of like has a bad connotation for a lot of people. And I've had, I want to say, I don't know, maybe 10, maybe not 10, 8 coaches over the course of my, the last 10, 15 years who could call themselves that. And it's always been worth it for me. And so the impetus for the group coaching, and I'm sure, so it's similar to what you're doing in a sense. The impetus was like, I found it really helpful and I want to do that for other people.
Yeah.
And the one thing I found that's powerful is in these group coaching environments, like half of the impactful things I teach them are things that they could Google, like already know, and like sometimes already know about, but it's because they trust me. And I'm saying, no, this is what made an impact for me, that they actually put it into action. And that's what counts, as putting it into action.
Yeah, I think that there's so many things there, man. I think the only people that say life coaches and all this stuff are the people that don't do it.
Yeah.
I always get, oh, you're a scammer for charging a couple $1,000s to come on a retreat. That's nobody that's ever, I've 100 guys come on the retreat. Not one of them has said they didn't get the value, right? So you get a lot of that, just the haters and people that say that. But one of my favorite quotes too is when one teaches to learn. And so I always tell my guys that, and I'm going to meet you where you're at. We're learning together. And I think that's a really powerful thing, that it can continue to help you grow. And again, you get that fulfillment aspect of seeing other people win is like a very rewarding thing in life, man.
Yeah, it is. And I think the skill I'm most excited about building now is that talking to somebody and quickly kind of seeing what it is that they're missing. Because like we were talking about earlier, there's some element of that, but I'm not as skilled yet at that as I'm fine at it. But that's really fun. It's fun to see people who are really talented there, and just, within talking to somebody for 20 minutes, they're like, oh,
they can piece together and just ask that perfect question at that perfect time and get that person to self-reflect. If you really think about it, man, most of us are just going through life. We don't even pause ourselves to ask ourselves a lot of questions. So it's very powerful to have a smart person take a bird's eye view of your life and be able to ask you a lot of questions and to think about these things in a different way. And the value of that, I've had coaches for the last 5 or 6 years, and subsequently that's when my life got 1,000 times better, and I'll never not have a coach at this point. So I'm very much into that, man. That's awesome. I appreciate that, man. And Elliot is a beast. I love that he was coaching you during the Vinavici, all those games too, right? Yeah, no, he was, so like I normally will like buy packages of a certain number of sessions, but he was just like, all right, this next package, we'll just get through the challenges. So whatever you need during the challenges, which was generous. It was generous of him. And probably 2 days a week before the session, like right before the session, I'd have a 20-minute call with him, just get ready in the zone to play. And then maybe once a week on a day off, just catch up. And it was hugely beneficial. Yeah, that's awesome, man. Well, I appreciate it. Well, I have a few other questions I want to ask you, some even not poker, if you're cool with that. Yeah, of course. I just like to ask smart people these questions, man. Number one, this is almost just selfish for me, but dude, we're in a political climate that's insane, and I'm not going to ask you like political stuff, but I just mute all the words because it just kind of drives me crazy. But then I also feel a little guilty for it, right? And I'm like, maybe I should take an interest. I just wondered, percentage-wise, hey, 100% you're out marching in the rallies, or hey, 0%, I don't even know what's going on. Yeah. Where do you fall into that? Do you have thoughts on that? Especially being a dad, right? Like I feel a certain responsibility. Maybe I should care, and then I'll care a couple days, and I'm like, it's driving me crazy. I can't even do my other stuff. So I just wondered your take on that. What you sort of think about that? A perfect example of the type of like coaching magic that I aspire to is one of my coaches. I forget how it came up, but she just said, like, I've been working with her for a couple months, and politics came up, and she was just like, "Oh, you don't have patience or interest like for that." And I was like, "Yeah, you're right. How do you know that?" So like it annoys me a lot because it's just so divisive. I would say that since America's gotten more divided, and I've
paid more attention than I did before. I would say, you know, like 15 years ago, I paid zero attention.
Yeah.
And now on that scale of 0 to 100, maybe I'm 30, but man, like my strongest belief there is that we all just have no idea how influenced we are by everything around us. And we think our opinions are all our own. And it's just, it's just, it actually came to me the most because usually on my feed, like I'm kind of in an echo chamber of sorts. Like usually like people feel the same way about a divisive issue, but it was actually the Middle East situation recently where like my feed was entirely split down the middle. And I got to really see like, oh, okay, these people have two entirely different sets of facts and they both think there's no chance that the other has any idea what they're talking about. Like, it's just like, and it's smart people who I know and respect. And I'm like, oh, wow. Like you think that this person is a complete moron and just like can't possibly have ethics. And you think the same thing about this person. Just like, no, I know you people. And that's not the case. And so that's when it really struck me how our surroundings, even, I mean, from the time we're born, shape the way we feel about things and think about things. And it's just it's so hard. Like I'm a thoughtful and generally smart guy. And I know that I can get fooled by. So like if I'm getting fooled, like, that's how I feel. It's just, if you feel really strongly one way, I mean, everybody should have their opinions. I respect that. But the people on the other side are people. And if you meet them, you're gonna be like, this is a reasonable person.
Right. I always think like, even if you vote vote 100% Republican, 100% Democrat, and you meet each other and your kids hang out and you all play together and have a dinner, like you have way more in common than you have with Donald Trump or you have with Kamala Harris or whoever's running. Like it's kind of crazy to me that people get so divided, but it's become a very polarizing topic. And I've kind of come to the conclusion that I just going to shut it off. And like, if people ask, I'm just like, I don't really follow it.
Yeah.
But I think that's a fair take to just kind of be aware of what's going on and, you know.
Yeah, me too.
Okay. That's fair. Well, I wanted to ask another thing, man, and this is something that, you know, I think it's super personal, whatever it is, but do you ever think about, is this life it? Is there another life after this? You know, faith kind of things. Does any of that ever come into your mind, or are you just really focused on day to day, or have you ever put any thought into that?
I don't think about it too much. I think, you know, a long time ago, I shifted from what I guess atheist to agnostic, where my belief is I have no idea. And I don't spend a lot of time thinking about it, honestly. No, I think, you know, there's a lot of, I mean, if you pause and look at the world, it's pretty amazing. You know, it's a miracle. And I think that's awesome to just stop and take in, you know, however it got here. But I don't know. And I don't think I can figure it out.
I mean, I always say this, anybody who says they 100% know, they're lying to you, because nobody knows. And I agree with you, man. The world's an amazing, like, I think you live with a lot of gratitude, it seems. And to me, that's a pretty good place to start. It's just like, holy cow, man, we're flying around on this rock that orbits a big ball of fire. It makes no sense, but like, let's enjoy some of the journey, man. So I appreciate that, man. Thanks. Last one of these, man. Bitcoin. Do you have any opinion on this? A lot of people in the poker community have strong opinions. Yeah,
I don't have a strong opinion. I mean, being in the poker community, you get a better feel for it because you use it and you see the utility. Like I've had 2 or 3 banks close my account because like just poker transactions. They're like, what is this? And
you're like, wire me $1 million so I can play this game. And they're like, what are you talking about?
Exactly. So like you see the utility right away. I don't know. A while ago, I was very, very bullish on Bitcoin. And now I'm agnostic. I don't really know. Because at this point, it's like, I don't know. It's a little different now. It feels like, I don't know. A big part of it is like the supply is capped. And that's a big part of my belief early on in it. But now, I don't know, there are just so many things stacked on top of it. And that I'm just not sure.
Seems convoluted to me, man.
Yeah.
I don't understand it. To be honest,
Yeah.
my biggest takeaway from Bitcoin has been if the smartest people you know are talking about something and it cost $1 to buy one, you should buy 100 of them and just see what happens, right?
Yes.
Like make $100 investment. That was because I had guys telling me 15 years ago, like this is going to be huge. And I was like, I just didn't understand it. So, you know.
No, that's a great takeaway. And the key is smart people, because a lot of people buy when it's on the news, and at that point you're a little too late for that cycle.
Yes, 100%. That's yes, 100%. Well, man, you don't strike me as a guy who, even if you had all the money in the world, man, you'd just go sit on a beach, right? You're too competitive. You need drive. Where do you see yourself going in the next decade? What do you think that looks like for you, your family, competing wise, business wise?
I don't know.
Not sure.
Like I didn't when I played poker only. Every session is different. You're solving puzzles like the whole time you're sitting down. That's like what lights me up. And I didn't realize then that I kind of have shiny object syndrome, where like once I got into business, I get really excited about an idea. I sprint towards that. I get a little bored of it later and I go to the next thing. And I didn't realize that in poker because there are always new things to solve. So a lot of my goals as it relates to business are to kind of get to just to have the freedom to work on stuff that's fun to me and with people that I enjoy working with. And so that's like basically to minimize the amount of hours I spend on stuff I don't feel like doing. That's the goal. And it's so that I can open up my ability to follow the next new idea that excites me and the new thing I want to learn about.
Man, that's a great, I think that's a perfect metric for how free and joyful of a life you're going to have is, you know, I played poker professionally for a decade and then got married and we moved back home. There was no casinos and online was banned. And I illegally wired into Canada for a while, but I didn't really like the risk of that. And it was tough. So I went and managed a bank for like 6 years, right, in this process. And it taught me the value of like owning your own time. And so I really like that to continue to audit. Here's some things that I kind of just need to do now. Maybe make shorts for YouTube for video. Maybe someday, like I'm gonna lower that. I think that's a pretty good goal, man.
Yeah, thank you.
Where do you see yourself going in poker? I mean, I saw you and Farrah played the main event. You crushed it on early on. I was rooting for a deep run, man.
Me too.
Do you still see yourself throwing yourself in the mix with really high stakes games for a really long time? Or
it's so tough because I would love to, but the games are not really available right now to me. And so
is that because they've gone private and you just like
they've gone private? Also, I mean, like I'm a specialist. Like currently, I'm a heads up PLO specialist, and that's kind of it. I could take the time and learn other games. And if all of a sudden there are readily available no limit hold'em nosebleed games online or live in casinos, like then I'll take the time to learn it and play. But right now I don't know. I have this. I really want to. I mean, right now I just took on, I like in the next few months, I'm not going to play. I took on too much, but I love to play and I want to play again. But it is the kind of thing where I have enough going on outside of it that if it's going to be getting into those opportunities that are more dicey or I'm less comfortable with, or just like are a big hassle then I probably won't. I'll wait for it to get like readily available.
Yeah, where do you see poker going in the next 10? I mean, online to me is getting scarier and scarier with buy. You know all about this, owning Run It Once for a while and all the challenges that we face as a community, right? And I don't even feel good at like WSOP.com. I play on that. I just played an hour or so this morning, but I don't feel good playing bigger stakes because I RTA is just like everybody seems to have it, right? Which is real time assistance for everybody.
So what I think needs to happen is needs to get regulated throughout more states. This for the success of poker. Regulated throughout more states, which I'm actually slightly optimistic about now. Specifically, like just this week, DraftKings launched like a poker. They just like lottery sit and goes only.
Wow.
But them getting into it as a bigger player that might push lobbying money towards it. Like I think we could be on our way, hopefully, to getting it legal in more states. And then the biggest thing is because detection is pretty good. If the sites put money into it, we do have a problem of like whack-a-mole where because AI is getting, so much stronger, it's getting easier or will get easier to access tools to help you cheat. And so even if the detection is really good, it's just like swatting flies. So what I think needs to happen is that within these regulated markets, we start seeing people like go to court for cheating. Like we start seeing like actual legal consequences. And now, yeah, a lot of people can get access, but it's not worth it, you know?
Yeah, that's
just
my love language is harsher penalties, man. I really think you need to be, if you get caught cheating once, you need to be banned. You need to be like emptied account. You need to be never allowed again. You need to, you know, like some severe consequences, right?
Yeah, you have to make it not worth trying. Yeah. And so I don't think there's ever been a legal consequence of somebody cheating in a poker game. And so that's what I think is going to be a big turning point if that ever happens.
Yeah, that's a good take. I like that, man. I guess last question then, man, and thank you so much for your time, bro. I really appreciate it. And it's an honor to meet you, man. But I guess last thing I'd ask is just everybody to go check out all your stuff. Your stuff is absolutely amazing. And, you know, the dad life, the married life, we got everything kind of going on with poker, man. I guess I kind of asked you a little bit, but what can the people expect next, man? Is it a lot more coaching, a lot more one-on-one groups? Where's that going? I
started a coaching program that, rather that I was doing these like small 10 or 13 week programs with small cohorts. And now I'm doing one large group. It's a year-long program and evergreen, so people can join at any time. And I'm just a few weeks into that, and it's been stressful, but, you know, exciting and stressful. That's how they always start. And so as I'm trying to, I think, develop as a coach, like I think probably some of my content will get a little, will start to shift a little away from poker. I mean, still poker, because all of these people are poker players. But I'd like to test, content that's more along the lines of what I'm teaching in the group and see how people respond to it. Because that's kind of what I'm more interested in right now.
Yeah, I'm going to make a prediction. It's going to go well. Seems like anything you go after, man, it goes pretty well. And also just a really smart person who wants to get better at something. I mean, we started Run It Once and we've done 12 years in a row, 2 videos, and we don't miss days, right? Like that's kind of the cheat code to being really good at anything. So I look forward to that too, man. It's cool to watch you help a lot of people. I'm one of them, brother, to be honest. Awesome. I talked about going back to the bank. I had no access to really time for study tools as a young dad. All I had was Run It Once. I watched videos, I'd take notes, I'd be able to implement some of the stuff, and still been a winning player now for 2 decades. And that's a lot of the content and stuff that you've put out. So appreciate that, man. Changed my life, to be honest. Now I have a lot of freedom over my time.
Awesome. Well, thank you for telling me that. That's great.
Well, I appreciate you coming on, man. Thanks for your time, your energy, and we'll get you back home to your wife and kid to work. But for everybody tuning in, man, go be kind to yourself, go be kind to others, have the best day of your life, and thanks for tuning in.